Oh my God. Where do we start? The Indiana Fever, my friends. The Indiana Fever stepped in it big time last night, ignited a civil war among the Indiana fan base, proved that they have no idea what they are doing when it comes to putting together a winning basketball team. This is absolutely crazy. I'm sure you've heard by now, but I've got some things to say, and I hope you clicked on this and stick with me because I'm going to talk about something that no one else is talking about with this pick on either side of the issue. Because, of course, with everything that went on with Raven Johnson, a lot of people who support the pick automatically assume those that are critical of it think it's personal and it's hate. And, of course, we're going to bring in the skin color and on and on. And it's exhausting. And sadly, it is coming from a lot of Indiana Fever fans. I don't know if they're Caitlin Clark fans, but Indiana Fever fans. Because although we don't like to talk about it, there actually is a good portion of the Indiana Fever fan base that are not basketball fans. They're not sports fans. And I don't mean that in a really negative way, like how we talk about the old guard WNBA, where it's not about basketball. What I mean is they weren't sports fans. They weren't really basketball fans. They discovered Caitlin Clark. They fell in love with Caitlin Clark, but they've never been part of a fandom at this high of a level. So many things that are normal, completely normal in sports fandom that no one bats an eye on, freaks them out, makes them upset, makes them enraged, has them yelling and screaming and telling the normal fans how horrible they are and F them and they don't talk and you can't be a part of this fan base and we don't want you and all this other stuff. And it's kind of wild to watch that happen. And we'll get into a little bit of that later. And I promise you, I'm going to get into the real big issue with, sorry, I just lost my mouse. All right, there we go. A real big issue as to why I think this is a terrible pick. And of course, we'll get into some Stephanie White stuff that is also a 5 alarm fire. We have this. I got to tune. This is really loud. So, I mean, really not loud. So hopefully you can hear this. But just as a quick reminder, this didn't help that this was not all that long ago. This is Raven Johnson about Caitlin Clark's wave off.
And then another adversity would probably be Caitlin Clark.
And look at how far Caitlin Clark is playing off of Raven Johnson. Caitlin Clark, left side. She doesn't even look at her. Waves her hand as if to say, I don't care about you. I'm not defending you.
That's one reason I hate the internet now. Because of that situation. Like, I got bashed, I got bullied, I got called all these things that I wasn't, aka like a monkey or this, I don't know, like it was just things like that. And I just think I wanted to quit basketball at that time. And I wanted to just go in this little bubble of isolation and just be by myself. And I think, I leaned on God. I had some wonderful teammates, wonderful people in my life, like I said. And they helped me find that light. And it put so much fuel to the fire to me to go back the next year. And we went undefeated and met that team again. And we beat them. So I think it was all God's plan.
Wow. Yeah. By the way, she made it racial, of course. Those would be South Carolina fans, Raven. Those would be your own fans. There is zero reason for you to get hate or bullying from Caitlin Clark fans because of what Caitlin Clark did with the wave off. Okay. So those were your fans if that actually happened. And then she has to go, that team. We met that team. It was part of God's plan for Raven Johnson to beat Caitlin Clark and Iowa. So no, there are definitely some question marks you have about the fit. Now, of course, Raven will say all the right things, Caitlin will say all the right things, but that doesn't mean it's okay in the locker room. But again, I don't think that that's the really big issue here. So what do we got going on next? You're going to love this. You are going to love this. Now, this one's kind of loud, so I got to turn it down a little bit.
With Caitlin, Ty Harris, and now Raven at point guard. How does that help you, especially with all the injuries you had last year and just Raven's defensive versatility?
Well, we're not speaking those into existence anymore. But I think it helps because Ty is a player who's a combo who can play on and off the ball. Caitlin Caitlin is a player who can play on and off the ball. Raven is a point guard that primarily has had the ball in her hands, and so I think it gives us some versatility. Thankfully, having a couple of different guards gives us the ability to allow Kelsey to rest a little bit too. So I think we'll have a pretty good rotation when it comes to our perimeter players. Especially in the 1 to 2 spot. I think it'll give us a lot of different ways that we can play. A lot of different matchups that we can play against. We can give different looks. So I think it's going to be really important. And we can go with a defensive lineup. When you've got somebody like Raven, Ty played for us in Connecticut, so she understands what we're about on the defensive end of the floor as well. So she understands the expectations.
Wow. If I were a GM and I knew what I was doing, which Amber doesn't, we'll get to that in a second as well, I would fire Stephanie White on the spot for these comments. Sincerely, I'm not trying to be over the top. Like, what she just said to me is she has no idea whatsoever how to coach this team. This is a Fever team that has issues with their front court, right? We've got Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham playing front court. Monique Billings. Now, look, Monique Billings could be a very solid starter. Don't get me wrong. When you have Caitlin Clark, although with the way Stephanie White wants to use Caitlin Clark, that may be negated. But we don't have any high quality depth. Okay, a lot of people are like, "Oh, Caitlin doesn't need a super team." No, you're right, but she does need good players around her, and she needs front court players around her. We don't need 17 point guards when you have generational Caitlin Clark as your point guard. The other thing, if you notice, she mentioned Raven is a point guard with the ball in her hands. Raven is her ball dominant point guard, but Caitlin Clark can be on and off the ball. Caitlin Clark, until Stephanie White in college and the pros, the most ball dominant, highest usage rate point guard player around. We can go with an all defensive lineup. We'll put out Ty and Raven. Where does Caitlin go then? Small forward, the bench. Get used to Caitlin Clark being ineffective, I should say, this season. Playing small forward, reduced minutes, playing off the ball even if she's a guard. We'll get Kelsey Mitchell some rest, but we're gonna make Raven the ball dominant point guard. Get Caitlin Clark off of the ball, maybe even play her at small forward. Which, by the way, it all rolls downhill, right? That means it's the domino effect as well. Lexi Hall, Sophie Cunningham, a lot of times both playing that small forward position. Where do they go if you start moving Caitlin Clark to small forward? This is the questions I have with Ty Harris. She's a Stephanie White girl, started all season long for that 2024 playoff Connecticut team. By the way, she was hurt most of last year. That's why I keep referring to 2024. And was, for the WNBA, an effective starting point guard. You think she came here? You think those negotiations, you think there weren't promises between Stephanie White and Ty Harris in terms of expectations that I promise you're not going to sit the bench or play 3, 4, 5 minutes a game? Now you put your first pick into Raven Johnson when you had options of bigs out there that are better players. Raven Johnson, I get it. People say she can play defense, but that's it. She's a very limited player. She herself expected to go lower in the draft. There is nothing good about this pick, even setting aside all the drama and all the other stuff surrounding Caitlin Clark. From a pure basketball standpoint, this pick makes no sense whatsoever when you look at the Fever roster. None. There's nothing about it that makes sense at all. Now, about Amber Cox, and yeah, I have a lot more to say about that, but about Amber Cox, for those who think I'm being too harsh. By the way, Amber Cox has no idea what she's doing when it comes to players or player personnel, which is something this says. No idea how to put a team together. Long history in management in women's sports and leagues and teams, I get that. Never been on the player personnel side of that, has never really had those responsibilities. Fever GM Amber Cox on drafting Raven Johnson 10th overall. Raven is somebody that we thought would probably go in the top 4 or 5. Again, fireable offense. Your GM just screamed at the top of her lungs, I don't know anything about basketball. I have no idea how to evaluate talent. And we certainly have seen that she has no idea how to recruit talent. By the way, we get any of those overseas players? I mean, I know the Liberty have about 40 of them locked up. How many do the Fever have? How many do the Indiana Fever have? We've also got some of this stuff as well. They might as well get Kennedy Carter, too, at this point. These three are fake as hell. Talking about Amber and Stephanie and Kelly. Three effing morons, and the ownership sucks for allowing these a-holes to do this garbage. Tell me I'm wrong, but these three women look like groupies. F you, White. Might as well get Dejanay Carrington since you are adding CC haters to the team. Yeah, this stuff is absolutely crazy, man. Absolutely crazy. We've got now this is just a comment on that video I showed you. Hiring Stephanie White was one of the biggest mistakes in franchise history. I'd rather have Christy Sides back at this point. 100%. Give me Christy Sides. Now, here is why this is a terrible, terrible pick. Caitlin Clark is entering her third year in the WNBA. Generational player. Injuries last year, I get it. But rookie year, all first team WNBA is a rookie, fourth in MVP voting. We all know how she changed the game, her shooting, her basketball IQ, her passing ability. She makes players around her better, all the records, and on and on and on. You do not draft a point guard in the first round when you have that. Caitlin Clark isn't even in her prime yet. First round pick at this level has expectations of playing time. Caitlin Clark has to be on the ball, not off the ball, on the ball. She is your point guard. She makes your offense go. She runs the offense. She creates offense for other players. To put it another way, if you are an NFL franchise with an elite quarterback, a guy who's going to win you Super Bowls, a guy who's already at that level and maybe not even in his prime as a quarterback. Maybe he's 25, 26, 27, 28 years old. In no way ever are you drafting a quarterback in the first round. Now, you might decide you need a backup. Most likely, though, you'd go get a veteran as a free agent or, send some draft picks to another team for a vet who's on the bench. But if you're going to go young, you're going to draft in the second, third, fourth, fifth round, maybe. No way ever. And everyone knows that. There would be no conversations about people freaking out at those criticizing drafting a quarterback in the first round when you have an elite quarterback who can win you a Super Bowl who's not even in his prime yet. This is insane. Insane to be doing this. And some of the comments have been absolutely wild. I will not read a million comments for you in this case. This has gotten kind of long, but there's a lot of this. I mean, this is what's so crazy and what I mean about that part of the Fever fan base that never really paid attention to sports. I hope everyone who is being disgusting about the Fever front office picking Raven Johnson stops watching the Fever altogether. Don't need any of that negativity. Be gone. And don't even bother replying with the same, it's vitriol, not vitriol, because you'll immediately be blocked. Go F yourselves. This is what we're dealing with in the Fever fan base. Now, you may disagree with my take, but it's been reasonable and it's been purely about the basketball of it all. But apparently, because I didn't fall down on my knees and glaze this pick, I am not allowed to be a Fever fan. That's where we've been. And by the way, to sum up and finish up with the Stephanie White stuff. Stephanie White is, I mean, she did nothing. She spent all the NCAA tournament licking Raven Johnson the whole time, glazing Raven Johnson the whole time. You know what I meant. But look, man, here's the crazy thing, and I want to just sum up by going also back to what Stephanie White said about saying Caitlin's on and off the ball and Raven's ball dominant. Every single coach ever who's gone up against Caitlin Clark, the game plan 100% is to take the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands. And Stephanie White is just as eager, if not more so, to do that than any of those coaches. The problem is Stephanie White is not an ops coach. She's Caitlin Clark's coach. It's practically criminal. It is wild to think that 2024 post-Olympic break with Christy Sides, when she said, "Yeah, you know what? This stuff isn't working. I'm just giving you the keys, Caitlin. You run the offense. Let's go up tempo, read and react, do your thing. Let's go out and have fun, play high pace." And you saw how successful it was, how exciting it was to watch as well. That is going to be the peak of Fever basketball with Caitlin Clark. It is not going to get better than that because I don't see Amber or Kelly or Metheny getting fired anytime soon. But I absolutely know that they will not use Caitlin Clark the right way. They're going to ruin. They have Aaliyah Boston. I'll say second best. I'll be nice to Asia Wilson and say second best center in the league. Caitlin Clark, best point guard in the league. Both all WNBA players. Kelsey Mitchell, all WNBA player. You could argue she's the best point guard in the league. But the reason I was saying Aaliyah and Caitlin is because they're only a year apart and they're both on rookie contracts and it's being wasted. It is being wasted. Absolutely insane. We had no idea how good we had it post Olympic break 2024. But man, this is a head scratcher. It's going to be interesting to see how training camp goes because I didn't even get into it because I don't want to make this too long. But there's a good pick in the second round that I really liked. Maybe I'll talk about that in another video. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Really do appreciate it. Go have the day you deserve. I will talk to y'all later.